without further ado, we will kick it off. I'm going to quickly run through VetCor and just give a quick overview because I see some new faces here. But then we will introduce our panel, go into a panel discussion, and then we'll wrap up with Q&A. We want both a panel discussion and the Q&A portion to really be a time for you guys to get some really good takeaways from our panelists today. So without further ado, for those of you who don't know us, we are a corporate medicine group. We have over 460 practices now in 35 states. So if you look at a map, you'll see we started up in the Northeast and have really trickled down the East Coast and are now expanding west, which we're really excited about. But one of the things that I feel makes us really special is that from a corporate standpoint, we are very hands-off in the day-to-day operations of our hospitals. So we really feel that our doctors and our support staff know what is best for their team and also their patients and their community. So we allow them to really make those tough decisions, especially when it comes to how they want to practice medicine. You know, I could not tell you how to treat a dog that came in and was limping. So we really believe that should be up to each individual practice. And that also allows for each of our practices to kind of create their own diversity within our network, which allows for us to have a really strong family of hospitals. So a little bit about us. If you guys have any questions, feel free to ask me, but I want to make sure that we're spending our time introducing our panelists and really getting into the meat of our discussion today. So first up, we have Dr. Harris. He graduated from Ross University in 2021 and attended his clinical year at the University of Minnesota.
2012.
Since graduation, Dr. Harris has had several leadership positions, including the Director at Large for the World Aquatic Veterinary Medical Association, which I tried to say 10 times fast, and it was a little rough to do there, Dr. Harris. And he is currently the president of Texas Veterinary Medical Foundation. Currently, Dr. Harris serves as the Vice President of Veterinary Leadership for VetCor and has a passion for connecting with the DVM community, as well as mentoring future generations of veterinary professionals and paraprofessionals. So really excited to have you here, Dr. Harris.
Thank you.
Yeah, next up we have Dr. Niccole Bruno, a native New Yorker who currently works as the Chief of Staff at Companion Animal Hospital in Spring, Texas. Dr. Bruno attended Tuskegee University and earned her DVM degree in 2006 from Cornell. And it was there that Dr. Bruno and her classmates formed Voice in 2004 to bring awareness to the diversity of the veterinary students and to create an inclusive environment at Cornell. Following graduation, Dr. Bruno completed a medical and surgical internship and continued to work in New York before moving to Texas in 2017. And Dr. Bruno is a strong force in creating a diverse and inclusive culture at her hospital, as well as her community. She continues to pay it forward by dedicating much of her time to speaking and mentoring students from elementary to veterinary school and increased representation in the profession. So very excited to have you here, Dr. Bruno. And then last but certainly not least, we have Dr. Laura Valle, who was born and raised in Puerto Rico and received her doctorate in veterinary medicine from Ross University in 2015. For 4 years following graduation, she practiced at a mixed animal hospital in Odessa, Texas, and since 2019 has worked at Lake Alfred Animal Hospital in Florida, where she is currently our Chief of Staff. So we are super excited to have you guys here today. Thank you so much for joining us and sharing this discussion, and I will let you guys kick it off into our panel.
Thank you, Sarah. So what we're going to do is, kind of just go through a few questions, and some of us will answer all of them, or all of us will answer some of them, and so on and so forth. And so we'll just kind of go from there. And again, like Sarah said, if you guys have questions, definitely feel free to put them in the chat. And so the first question that we have, that I think all three of us, probably should kind of weigh in on is on a personal level. What impact does DEI have on you? And Dr. Bruno, I would love for you to kick us off on the right foot here. So if you wouldn't mind taking that one.
Yeah. Hello, everyone. Thank you all for coming tonight. I know you guys are busy, but on a personal level, I mean, DEI has been much of my life in veterinary medicine. I wanted to be a veterinarian when I was 12 years old. So I saw almost immediately the lack of representation in this profession. I didn't really have a mentor in my early years because of the fact that there was no one that really looked like me in most of the hospitals that I got my shadowing experiences. And it felt lonely, and I felt almost like I didn't belong there. And so I went to Tuskegee University for undergrad, and I think being at a historically Black college and university, it made me see that the dream was real, and my professors really encouraged me, and I could see the vet school across the street, and I saw the dream, and it seemed like it would be a reality for me. And you know, life had it where I went to Cornell instead, and I think because I had the experience at Tuskegee to really feel that level of belonging, I wanted that at Cornell. And I was very fortunate to have a diverse class. And my classmates and I did found Voice. And, you know, it's just amazing to see what Voice has become. And, you know, you're in school, I felt supported at Cornell. We were able to do a lot of things with Voice. But when I graduated, I fell back into this homogenous profession. And there were times where I felt really burnt out trying to like balance learning medicine and then trying to deal with microaggressions and just trying to fit in. And those were some of my harder times in this profession. But I think when I had an opportunity to pursue leadership, I realized the influence leaders have on hospital culture. And for me, that has kind of just taken off with my DEI career, so to speak. I'm very passionate about hospital culture. I think that is the foundation of, you know, the core of our hospitals and how we engage with our community and with each other. And we spend so much time at work. And I think it's really important that we foster a level of inclusion in our hospitals. And I think it can kind of take care of some of the issues that this profession is dealing with right now. So.
Dr. Del Valle, I'm going to ask you the same question. On a personal level, what impact does DEI have on you, madam?
So basically, being born and raised in Puerto Rico, I don't know if any of you guys are from Puerto Rico. So it's one culture, right? So you speak Spanish, some of the people speak English. So the way I'm going to answer these questions are going to be sharing some experiences. I think that's going to be the best way for me to explain to you what I've been through and make you understand. My first time that I actually got to experience diversity was when I was in college in Puerto Rico. I participated at the Disney College program right here in Orlando, and you're coming from Puerto Rico, and then you get bombarded by all these, you know, different cultures and, you know, different languages, and it was an awesome experience. And then, you know, you have Animal Kingdom where, you know, you want to work there and you want to do voluntary work there. I unfortunately didn't have that experience, but I wanted to. But then after college, I went to St. Kitts, it's a Caribbean island. It's basically the majority of the students were from the States. From the United States. There's a lot of Puerto Ricans too, but the majority of them spoke English. So my main language is Spanish, so forgive me if I say something wrong. But basically just being Latina, Hispanic, you know, coming from Puerto Rico and being a veterinarian has been a huge step for me. It's been a great journey. There's ups and downs, but you just tackle any problem that comes and you know, you just have to take it day by day. So basically that's it for that question for me.
Thank you, Laura. I'll tackle this question a little bit as well, because I'm coming from a completely different, you know, kind of angle, you know, from everybody else here. You know, I grew up in West Texas, not a lot of diversity outside of, you know, white, Black, and Mexican American. You know, after I moved from West Texas, you know, I moved to the Houston area and experienced a whole nother world of, you know, all kinds of cultures from all over the world. Houston's a very diverse, you know, kind of area. And I've always been in my mind, what I felt was inclusive of individuals, and regardless of race or, gender expression or identity or anything like that. But it kind of opened my eyes when I saw that there was even more than what I realized was there. And then not shortly, many years later, when I became a veterinarian, after George Floyd, kind of happened, Dr. Bruno actually and myself had a very in-depth conversation about DEI and about what it means to her. And, the fact that I hadn't posted anything in social media talking about George Floyd, I opened up that I have a brother that's a white police officer, and it just stemmed into this huge conversation that kind of branched out. And ultimately that made me realize that, kind of as a leader, as a heterosexual white male, my voice can make just as much a difference as everybody else by being an ally and kind of helping educate, others. And it's been quite the journey. It's super early in my journey. I still have a lot to learn. I will never pretend like I will never, that I'll fully understand all the ins and outs, but I will do my best. And that's kind of, where I'm coming from. So next question. How can future vets encourage a consideration of DEI in their own practices and cultures? And I probably will let the both of you guys answer this one, just because you're in practice a little bit more than I am. And so, Laura, can we start with you on this one?
So when we're talking about future vets, so we're talking about students. So the main thing, I have an experience to share with you guys. I was in vet school still. I had a year and a half still to graduate, and I was in a catamaran, which is it's a boat. We were having fun with friends, and then everybody was speaking English, and then my sister and I were speaking Spanish. So I had this couple approach me and said, "Hey, you can communicate well in Spanish, and you're a veterinary student, right?" I'm like, "Yes." So we kept talking, and then at the end of the conversation, they said, "So we are owners of a practice in Odessa, Texas, which is where Dr. Harris was born." And they mentioned that they didn't have any veterinarian that spoke Spanish at that clinic, and I actually encouraged them to consider to have a veterinarian that spoke Spanish, because like Dr. Harris said, at least half, I would say half of the population there, spoke Spanish. Either they were Mexican American, they were Puerto Ricans, they were Cubans, and they didn't have a veterinarian that spoke Spanish there. And I kept encouraging them right there on the boat, and they actually offered me a position right there and then. I still had a year and a half to graduate, and I already had a job offer. So basically, it was the best experience of my life. It was, even though, so when I first started working there, like I said, nobody spoke Spanish at the clinic. Maybe they had a tech or two that spoke Spanish. So I'm pretty sure there was a big gap in communication between the clients and the vets and the techs, So when I started working there, I feel like I brought in all this new clientele that spoke Spanish, and, they were very grateful. So I think it's just to encourage. Sometimes they don't know what they need. And even as a vet student, you can encourage, techs that you know, or chief of staff from clinics or managers. You can tell them things that, they're probably not aware of. And I mean, I think it's communication is the key here, basically. So, and always stay professional. Anywhere you are, if you're having fun somewhere, always stay professional, because you don't know who's watching you. So there you go.
Thank you, Laura. Dr. Bruno, what is your take on how we can encourage future veterinarians with the consideration of DEI in their own practices?
Yeah, so I had to dig back a long time ago, because I'm an 06 graduate, to like what it was like when I first got out of vet school, and how I felt and the things that were important to me at that time. And so, I don't want to piggyback on what Dr. Laura said too much, but, definitely identifying the demographics of your hospital will help you know, what languages that you may need to make sure that you have resources to provide. I mean, I grew up in Queens, New York, practiced in Long Island, actually near LIU. And we are in the, trenches of a really diverse community. And so making sure that you have resources for those languages that are spoken is important. My other thing is, finding your niche in this is also key. For me, mentorship was critical. And so I didn't see anything like that happening in the hospitals I worked at. So I had tons of friends in New York that were educators, and my mom was an educator, and they would always encourage me to do career days. And I pitched it to my boss. I'm like, this is good. This is something good that our hospital should do. We should go to career days. We should let, students know that what a veterinarian looks like and what the process is. And so I tried to engage with communities in our neighborhood, but also I would go to Harlem, I'd go to Washington Heights, I'd be everywhere just to, if they needed a veterinarian. So I think that depending on what is true to you, that's how you can bring those values into the practice you work in. I'm biracial, and so I understand what it's like to have grandparents that can't speak English and can't get the care they need because they don't understand. And so for me, language is very important. And so is mentorship, because I didn't have it. So I think the takeaway is finding out what is important to you. And that a lot of that has to do with your story and then channeling that. I mean, as a leader now, we can get blinders of what we need done. And so having diverse perspectives, you offer so much value of what's missing. And so finding that, what's missing and then offering a solution is the greatest thing that you can do.
Yeah. And just kind of hearing both of you talk about this, it seems like, keeping an open mind, right? Paying attention to the small things that are really big things, can be quite, beneficial, but also staying true to what you're passionate in will help us be successful in this realm. Those are great answers. Next question. Shared experiences allow us to break away from the only is lonely narrative. What advice do you have for students and new grads who are looking to connect with others of a similar background? I'll kind of jump on this a little bit, and then I think this is also a good one for all of us to touch base on. In my opinion, what I can offer advice for everybody is that this field and this industry is such a small world. We're all connected, and it becomes more and more evident every single year, especially for, the people that went to Ross, because we're just disseminated all over the country. Right. And so never, ever kind of feel like you can't reach out to one of your classmates or somebody that you went to school with, for a connection. It really comes back to help us out in the long run, to keep those professional relationships. And it's crazy the places that we will all go, which is kind of a cliche thing to say, but we all accomplish amazing things. And it's really, really fantastic when, I can reach out to my 3 roommates from undergrad. One's a surgeon, one's a clinical pathologist, and one is an oncologist. So I feel like I've got all kinds of specialists on speed dial at all times. And those types of connections are absolutely fantastic. Dr. Bruno, what would you add to that?
So I think that we are in a lucky time having social media and having different Facebook groups and alumni groups on, social media pages to kind of help bridge connections and even form connections in new spaces. I think that, leaning on affinity groups, especially, there's so many right now, but, Multicultural Veterinary Medical Association, or the MCVMA, Latinx VMA, voice.
But the main thing, going back to the question, I want to add that when I was a veterinary student, I didn't know all the opportunities I had whenever, I was in vet school. Just know there are veterinary conferences that will have veterinary students for free, or even have a big discount where you can go and, listen to the presentations. You can you can connect with people, connect with techs, connect with other veterinarians, and trying to find a route. Where do you want to go? Because I just want to tell you, it's something natural for you not to know if you want to specialize or if you just want to do general practice. It's something that every student will go through. So don't feel like you're lost or, that you're behind or whatever. It's just every student will go through this event in their life where they're like, I don't know if I want to do dermatology. I don't know if I want to be a surgeon. So the main things is communicate. If you go to these vet conferences, you'll get a lot of information, which I didn't know that I could go. I thought I had to be a veterinarian to go to them.
Okay, so I'm going to ask you just kind of individuals on this one as well. That way we can still have time for the Q&A. So Bruno, I'll start with you. How can a practice support its underrepresented, that's a hard word to say, underrepresented minorities and increase engagement in the veterinary medicine field?
Yeah, so I go back to what my roots were, which was mentorship. I think that's so fundamental with the pipeline and helping to increase engagement of students of color and underrepresented just minorities in this profession. So I think a big issue is, most of us know at a very young age, not all of us, but I do find that when we hit the early elementary, junior high school, they're so excited and thrilled about the veterinarian coming for career days. So I think, establishing relationships with your local schools, getting to know the guidance counselor, even if you just tell them like, hey, if there's a career day coming up, I don't mind showing up, or giving information. Last year, VetCor, our task force put together a guidance counselor PowerPoint, just to kind of show guidance counselors that, there's a different process to get into veterinary school than it is medical school and what that process entails. And so I think it's helpful the more we have those conversations with schools, because we can help guide students. And then by fostering relationships, we can also, help shadow, give shadow experiences to students. Potentially even sponsor a student. Like, a lot of times there are summer programs, and sometimes students and underrepresented minorities cannot attend them just due to socioeconomics. And so being able to help sponsor. And one of the things that I also do that I just wanted to share with you guys, because I think it's a great organization. It's called Vets of All Color. And they actually have a free coloring book that you can download. And I give that to the children that come into my hospital, because it shows veterinarians of different backgrounds that they get to color. And so it's just another way to acknowledge that we are trying to be a diverse profession, even though statistically we're not, but just to give these students a chance to see what they could become.
Well, and Dr. Bruno is being quite humble when she's talking about this too, because recently she's actually doing a collaboration with Barbie, and representing veterinary medicine, which is a phenomenal, amazing kind of thing. And I'm so excited to see, how this turns out.
Well, thank you. But yeah, for me, like I said, it goes back to my life story. I mean, growing up in Queens, you would expect you to see a whole bunch of veterinarians that look like you, and you don't. And it's very lonely sometimes. And so I credit my mom to a lot of my keeping that dream alive until I got to Tuskegee. So it's really important for me to get to that age group. So Barbie it is.
Yep, I'm with you. Okay, well, we will move on to the next question just for sake of time. So Dr. Laura, I would ask, what advice do you have for those who want to be DEI advocates and aren't sure how to start? And I can help with this question as well. But
yeah, because remember, this is, just so everybody knows, this is my first, presentation about DEI. So I'm very happy to be here. But basically, whenever they send me that email, hey, do you want to do this presentation? If you look online, there's so much information on how to participate in these kind of events or how to engage, because it's really important to have more and more people in this and know about this, because diversity is just a thing that needs to be bigger in this profession. So so I'll leave it to you, because like I said, I'm not really sure exactly what information to give them, but basically what I did, I found online a lot of information that helped me out. And so you take it from here.
Well, I think there's a big reason why I kind of wanted you to tackle this a little bit, because I want to remind everybody that everybody is at a different stage in their life as far as DEI goes, right? And there's going to be people who are unaware to advocate and everything in between. And it's a forever, kind of changing field, so to speak, just like veterinary medicine. And we always have to kind of study and research and self-teach and, go to events and educate. And, we have to work at it,
So something that I do want to add, not even a year ago, I was just an associate veterinarian, and now I'm chief of staff. So basically, as chief of staff, I need to make sure that I create an environment where everybody feels welcomed and appreciated, so I have to study, the cultural backgrounds of all the staff in the clinic. So it's basically a lot of learning and just being an advocate of diversity. We have Puerto Ricans, we had a Cuban at one time, we had somebody from Guyana, which I think it's in South America. So it's basically being open-minded, and open to the fact that you need to, it's better to have, all these type of cultural backgrounds in your clinic. It makes it more fun, and you learn to travel in your mind when you're talking to all these people. I haven't traveled much. I don't know if I already said that, but I just travel in my mind with learning all these different cultural backgrounds. So.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's a great addition. And the other kind of point that I would like everybody to make is, or to share with everybody as well, is if you have an interest, do it. I came at it with the thinking of what kind of difference can I make? Again, going back to the being a white man. And I feel like the more that I learn, the more that I see that I can make, a big splash, and I can teach people, you never want to say right from wrong, but you can say educate and uneducated, aware and unaware, and I can make people more aware by just sharing the things that I've learned, but also not being afraid to address something that I see that is incorrect. And that's kind of the key. A lot of people just see things and will let it slide. And as leaders of the profession, but also leaders in life, we have to have the tools to be able to say, that's not okay, but not necessarily chastise the individuals in most, not all, but most situations. But say,
address it.
Right, address it and say, we could better, kind of take it from this angle. And then we have just a few minutes left, about 15, 20 minutes left. So Dr. Bruno, would you like to tackle this question as well?
Oh, I'm sure. So, just basically feeding off of what others have said. I think the biggest thing is when you educate yourself, in this topic is doing some self-reflection, because I think that that's key in kind of trying to navigate this journey. Like, even for myself, being, biracial, an underrepresented population in this profession, I still had privilege, being a veterinarian. I grew up in a middle-class environment. I had supportive family that would take me to veterinary experiences. I went to a school that allowed me to get internships. And so I had experience as I was applying into veterinary school. And I see that that's not always the case for everyone, that some people have to work when they're in school. And I was fortunate I didn't have to. And so recognizing what your privilege is, allows you to take a look at what you can fix or what you can try to change, even if it is in your own little circle. Like, I never imagined that, me calling Dr. Harris one day, and we had a conversation prior to the George Floyd conversation. And that was when I first started to just express to him that I wanted to do more in the DEI space and on behalf of the company. And I think it's important to realize that even just voicing and being authentic and saying, like, this is what I want to do, this is the change that I want to see, you don't know that ripple effect. And I think back to voice, we didn't know then what voice would be now. And we just wanted to make Cornell better. But now look at what it is. And so I think the power of just making one small step can have such a ripple effect. So just kind of keep that in mind. And yeah, I think that's it. I'll end there.